Hello, welcome to the Matsunoki Cafe. I'm Shiro, the owner. Here to talk about just whatever is considered nerdy or nostalgic that's on our minds, whether it be video games, TV shows, or movies. So, whether you're new here or a returning customer, why don't you stick around and enjoy the conversation with your cup of joe. Isn't it crazy how the last time I talked about a TV show was my short Wednesday review back in January? Yeah, let's fix that. I want to talk about The Owl House, since the series finale aired not too long ago. I'm not too late, right? The Owl House was a show I would hear brief mentions of every now and then on YouTube and Twitter before I got around to watching it. Funnily enough, I watched The Owl House after binging its sequel show, Amphibia. I finally got around to watching Owl House because a close friend of mine got into it and recommended it to me, and it basically became our show, the one we would talk the most about. They even got me this cute little king plushie here, so thank you, Cass, again, for this. When I got into the show, Season 2 had just finished. Thankfully, I was there to watch each Season 3 special on day one with all the other fans. And now that the series is over, I figured I'd make this video to talk about my thoughts on the show and maybe even convince you, the viewer, to check it out. With that in mind, you don't need to worry about spoilers. Most of the video is free of that. There is a small spoiler segment at the end, but it's short and you'll be warned beforehand to skip past it. Let's begin! Luz Noseta is an energetic and goofy teenage girl who is initially defined by her multitude of nerdy interests and out there habits. Those traits make her not fit in well on Earth, so her mom and the school principal suggest she go to a summer camp where she'll be taught to act more normal. Luckily, Luz follows a small mysterious owl and ends up in a magical fantasy world known as the Boiling Isles. So, Luz is set to live in this beautiful, almost utopian land, right? No. The Boiling Isles is honestly terrifying. Doesn't matter where you are never 100% safe in this world. The Boiling Isles has acid rain. The rain can kill you. Soon after Luz arrives in the Boiling Isles, she meets Ida Clawthorne, an infamous rebel witch known as the Owl Lady. The two start getting along decently well, and so Ida lets Luz live with her at the titular Owl House. Aside from Ida and Luz, the other two individuals living there are a small cuboid-looking creature named King and a disturbing tube-shaped demon with an owl face named Hootie. Both of them are voiced by Gravity Falls creator Alex Hirsch. It's obvious he's voicing King since he's doing the Bill Cipher voice but without the filter added in post. Still, him being involved is an instant sign of a quality product. And thus, the status quo for most of the show is set by the end of the first episode. Luz gets into magical hijinks with Ida and King, along the way meeting the rest of the show's important cast. While the plot is way more emotion in seasons 2 and 3, there's a comforting charm to the monster of the week type stories told in season 1. If you don't vibe much with season 1, just stick with it and watch season 2, as that's where the show really gets good in my opinion. The overall cast of The Owl House is fun and pretty well handled. From the beginning of the show to the very end, there's a charismatic quality to the show's character writing and sense of humor that helps the viewer quickly grow fond of the many inhabitants of the Boiling Isles. From the main trio, to the students and teachers of Hexside Academy, to the members of the various magic covens, a majority of the Owl House's cast is memorable and likable. A big theme in Owl House as a whole is learning to value what makes you unique and different from everyone else. Luz, Ida, and King are a trio of outcasts who don't conform to the generalized standards of what is considered normal. Over the course of the show's run, the three become a family who fully embrace their uniqueness and support each other no matter what. It's really heartwarming to see these three grow closer and closer in seasons 1 and 2. A lot of other important characters fit this theme as well, though I won't go into their arcs to stay spoiler-free. This theme of uniqueness versus normalcy allows this show great opportunities to portray a ton of diversity in its characters. In terms of neurodivergency, our main character Luz has ADHD. As someone who has ADHD, yeah, I picked up on it pretty immediately when I started watching the show. There's multiple examples of LGBTQ representation in this show as well. Rain, a character introduced in season 2, is non-binary. I like how his gender identity is casually handled. There isn't a big spotlight put on it. Amity Blight, who's very likely the most popular character from this whole show, is a lesbian and Luz is bisexual. In my opinion, this show does an excellent job at portraying diversity of all kinds. The neurodivergent and queer representation is basically front and center, but the casual treatment makes the kind of people these characters represent feel just as common as everyone else. I'll just start this section by saying I like this show's art style. It's reminiscent of Gravity Falls' visuals, but it's got a flair of its own to really stand out. The way various locations in the Boiling Isles are drawn perfectly sets that vibe of fantastical, yet horrifying. Character designs are vibrant, yet they're kept simple, which I personally prefer. While little details can add more personality to a character's look, keeping appearances relatively simple like this definitely makes it easier to animate the characters. And goddamn, there are some impressive moments of animation in this show. Most of the fluid animation is saved for key fights in the series, which is good, because these fights go nuts. You know shit's about to go down the Owl House when the budget kicks in, I'm just saying. Voice acting across the board is stellar. Everyone nails their respective role. And this is a Disney production, so we got some pretty notable names on board for this show. I already mentioned Alex Hirsch, but aside from him, Ida is voiced by Wendy Malick of Hot in Cleveland fame. Amity is voiced by Mae Whitman, and Hunter is voiced by Zeno Robinson. Look, to put it simply, there's a lot of recognizable and talented people who provide their voices for this show. The music in the Owl House is pretty good. To be fair, I barely have an ear for music when it comes to TV shows, unless it's really pronounced in a scene. The main theme that plays during the intro is catchy and really hits the right level of adventurous feeling, if that makes sense. Okay, the next segment is also short. Or at least I plan for it to be short, and it will go over my thoughts on the 3 specials that cap off the series. If you haven't watched the show, please skip ahead to the timestamp I'm showing on the screen right now. Are we clear? Alright, I'll give you a couple seconds to skip ahead. Here's the thing. As I said before, I had watched Amphibia before the Owl House. The bittersweet finale to Amphibia admittedly brought me to tears. I was a crying mess. And while Owl House's finale is good, it didn't leave as strong an impact on me compared to its sister show. To be fair, Amphibia got an actual 3rd season to wrap things up, while Owl House only got a few specials, but Dana and her team did the best they could in the time they were given. The first Season 3 special did a fantastic job continuing off the Season 2 cliffhanger. The montage was a good substitute for what episode ideas were cut for the kids' time on Earth. It was well paced, and there were moments in this first act that hit an emotional chord for me, especially with Hunter. This episode made Hunter go from one of my favorites to my absolute favorite character from this show. He's precious and just needs all the hugs. Willow's little character arc in For the Future was nice to see. There was nothing to dislike about Willow before, but she felt a little bland as a character compared to everyone else. This arc was just what she needed. I've been in Willow's position before where I would bottle up my frustrations and anxieties so other people could rely on and vent to me. Honestly, that's still something I tend to do now as an adult, so watching her and Hunter's moment in that episode hit really close to home for me. I'm honestly happy Bellows stuck around as the actual big villain for the show as a whole. The Collector is an interesting antagonist for sure, don't get me wrong. The way he gets redeemed in Watching and Dreaming was cute to see, even if it did feel rushed due to time constraints. However, Bellows is just the perfect villain for the Owl House, for how well he plays into its themes of diversity I was talking about earlier. Plus, he has the benefit of having been around since the beginning, while the Collector only started getting screen time by the end of Season 2. My only big issue with For the Future is Kikimora and Basha. It felt like we were wasting time on these two since they didn't really matter much in the grand scope of things, outside of Basha making Willow finally snap under pressure. But outside of the Hexite section, the stuff that happens in the episode is really good. Bellows possessing Rain was a twist I didn't see coming, and as soon as he's got a new body, he goes back to what he does best, gaslighting children. And then we have the big finale, Watching and Dreaming. The segment where they take the Collector down memory lane was nice to see and honestly made me feel a little nostalgic, even though I haven't been watching this series for that long. Bellows becoming a huge dragon was visually metal as hell, and I love it for that. Luz's death leads to one of the best scenes in this episode and from the show as a whole. In the realm in between, Luz is saved by the Titan whose corpse was now the Boiling Isles. King's father, Belos' death was the perfect way for him to go out. He tries one last time to manipulate someone and get the upper hand, but it won't work on Luz. In the end, he's fated to melt in the acid rain before getting stomped to death by King Ida and Rain. It's played for laughs at the end, but that's kind of what I like about it. Belos deserves to die in such a pathetic fashion. This series ends on a lighter note compared to the bittersweet endings of Gravity Falls and Amphibia. But in retrospect, the Owl House needs this much happier ending. The main message of the show is about cherishing what makes you different and finding a sense of belonging with people who accept you for you. Forcing Luz to separate from the people she's grown close to and who appreciate everything about her would have gone directly against that message. Luz is still able to return to the Boiling Isles and see everyone she met there. In fact, Ida opened a new university for wild magic and Luz enrolled for all courses, which is just so fitting. The flash forward we get during the credits, seeing where all the inhabitants of the Boiling Isles are now, did get me emotional. Everyone's new designs are really nice. The final shot of everyone breaking the fourth wall and saying bye to the audience was what finally made me shed a tear. And then I almost cried again watching this a second time with the friend who got me into the show. Thanks, Cass. Love you, by the way. For people who skip this spoiler segment, I implore you to check out this show. It's fun and charming, the animation is great, the characters are fun and brought to life by talented voice actors. If I was able to convince just one of you to watch this show, then the goal of this video was accomplished. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it will seriously help me out as a smaller creator. Also, my best bud, SL Gaming, uploaded a video about coming up with a dream roster for a future Smash Bros. Game, and it features me! So, please go give that a watch. He put a ton of time and effort into it. I hope you enjoyed your time at the Matsunoki Cafe today. Until next time, stay safe out there.